We are a couple weeks out from the summer 2024 Olympics, which is a great time to look back and take stock of the event from a sports marketing perspective. What was unique about how the Paris Olympics were promoted and presented? Did they take any notable risks? What did they do well and what didn't go well with marketing and overall communications?
First of all, Paris, there's been a lot of talk and a lot written about, the Olympic movement. Is it still relevant? They've had, Tokyo without fans, and then Rio was fraught with issues, and Sochi Russian, whatever. So this really was like a seminal moment for the Olympic Games, and it delivered in an amazing way. I mean, it really was just a terrific success from all kinds of perspectives. I mean, the things you talked about, I mean, the games came off terrifically. Paris did take some risks in a number of areas. I guess I can touch on that. But it really set the games forward going there, because really what the Olympics are about, what's different in the Olympics is that people just gather for them, right? At a time when people really don't gather quite so much, it really galvanized folks. And as an aside, NBC and even NBC, they've had different formats. In the old days, you just sat at night and watched it, no matter what time the games ran. But they really, and for a number of games, they've kind of grappled with how do we balance live versus record or whatever. And they really nailed it this time. And the ratings were, I think, I'm not going to quote the numbers, but were far beyond, what they did in Tokyo, because on multiple platforms, right? People are on the phone at night, live games during the day, people getting up early in the morning, depending on where you live. So they really were able to capture that in a big way. As far as, taking some risks, I think that one of the biggest risks I thought was, having events in the Seine River, which I thought, I'm not sure, they took a risk. Ultimately, it came together. I thought even what was happening, there was so much positive around the games. Why do you want, this negativity creeping in that you kind of controlled? I know it was a lofty goal. It was a cool goal, right? Let's clean this up and do that. But there was still so much going on amidst all this positive energy about, is the river clean up and are people going to get sick? And, you could go on about that. So that was something that they did. The goal was good, which goes to, a big change. It's been an evolution of the games about sustainability, right? So, one aspect to that is the venues, right? Using existing venues. A big part of it, what LA is going forward, is using, many existing venues. An example in Paris, which is going to continue, is, instead of building a big pool, that no one needs big pools, right? That they built the pool in a venue, right? So it was gone. And I know LA is doing that. So that's a cool kind of innovation that stood out there. From a marketing perspective, it's Paris. What they did with the opening ceremonies on a boat was certainly a risk. It's something completely different. And it really stunk that it rained. But I think, the feedback on it, and I watched it, was this is really cool and different. Something else that they haven't done that's been a lot of the games to give access to folks is an Olympic Village. And they didn't have they have an Olympic Village for the athletes, but talking a place for fans and people to congregate, whether you have tickets or not. And they decided not to do that, but instead, spread that out throughout Paris and really engage and embrace the whole city. So it's interesting to see how that impacts it going forward. But they really, were all in on showcasing Paris in a big way. And everything, you couldn't miss the Eiffel Tower in any shot. And beach volleyball, which is always a huge thing, and right at the base of the Eiffel Tower. So that was a big deal. Even from an advertising and marketing perspective, the one advertiser that really stood out, Louis Vuitton, and they had the company's all kinds of initials now. So but it's Louis Vuitton, Moet, Hennessy, and the games, there's no signage, right? So the venues are clean. So it was all able to do that. But Louis Vuitton, which the way that was presented and the way they presented the medals and things, they got more exposure. And there was some controversy to that. Are they getting exposure when others don't? And even the Moet Champagne and that, and Coke also had a presence there. And then, different different other companies who sponsored a bit, like Toyota. It's interesting. I saw a speaker from Toyota recently at a sports marketing conference, and he said, two of our biggest entitlements are the NFL and the Olympics. We use the NFL to speak to the brain, right? Because NFL's everywhere and it's on it, and we get people to watch the NFL and do that. The Olympics speaks to their heart, and the Olympics gives the opportunity, and you saw that in advertising throughout the games and beyond. It makes you feel good. It makes people feel different, and do that. And so that stood out, and I saw some spots. I actually, through a Coke brand, Powerade, did Simone Biles did a terrific spot, on just her overcoming everything that she's done. She's done that too. But on the other hand, brands like Gatorade, right? We're actually just driving in today. I saw Sydney on the Eisenhower, a huge Gatorade spot, and people get the impression that it's an Olympic brand, even though it's not. It's a Pepsi brand. But, obviously Gatorade is omnipresent, stands out in a cool way.
The Olympics are a huge international event, and in a few years, the world's spotlight will turn to Los Angeles for the 2028 Summer Games. Do you think there are any lessons that LA can take from this year to better plan and manage their hosting?
Yeah, well, actually, LA is kind of interesting because the Olympics decided, because it's been harder to get cities for the first time, they selected two cities at the same time, Paris and LA. So in essence, LA has been planning and focused for much longer in their games. They're well into it in doing that. And obviously, things in Paris that stood out. And I just saw that, LA, what do you think when you think of LA? You think of cars, right? That you're not going to be able to access a venue via car, right? How are you going to do that? It's one thing to do in Paris where the metro is unbelievable and you walk around, it's a city of walking. None of those things you think in LA. So that's a bold thing, but I think that came out of that we need to get cars out here. We need to make it more sustainable. We need to do that. So that's something that's coming to that. From a marketing perspective, obviously for here in the U.S., the times of the venue just works better, right? Since we fit in there. But sustainability and existing venues, Mike, and a big part of LA's bid, which was part of Chicago's ill-fated 2016 bid, was existing venues and doing things. And one interesting that stood out, even the LA games, softball is returning as an Olympic sport, and the softball is going to take place in Oklahoma City. And the rationale behind that, right or wrong, like Oklahoma City, LA, that Oklahoma City has built this amazing softball structure with the NCAA championships every year. So instead of building, something similar to that, softball, why don't we host at Oklahoma City? We're going to make, we're going to make it possible for the athletes to be at the opening ceremonies, closing, whatever. But that's an example. The pool example I talked about, where they're, having a pool and space there, and just by way of LA, the different venues, and the Clippers and Steve Ballmer are opening a brand new, multi-billion-dollar facility and forum and everything. So they have the venues to support that. So, sustainability is something else from Paris that'll be interesting to see. And that, again, comes with sustainability, a plus and minus. The Olympic Village and where the athletes were housed, they wanted to make it very sustainable, 10,000 athletes. All the spaces are being converted to residential and retail, so nothing is going to be a white elephant. At the same time, there were some issues with the athletes. There were the beds were, were cardboard, and so they're retractable. The food maybe not wasn't. There was some things about that, and the food, and is the lodging comfortable enough? So I'm sure that's something they're looking into. Because right, you want to have something sustainable and not bringing all the stuff that's going to disappear. At the same time, you want to make sure you're taking care of the athletes in the biggest way. And of course, LA, from a marketing perspective, the 84 games really, I think in much the same way, I think the 2024 Paris games were transitional for the game itself. The 84 games in LA really was the first time that marketing and advertising and sponsors were brought in to really pay for it. And those LA games became profitable and became, okay, wow, there's a whole other funding mechanism. So LA has taken that to the next level going forward.
DePaul's Newsline just ran a story about Olivia Homan, an alumna who had an amazing opportunity to capture the Olympics for NBC Universal's social media. Can you share any other cool student success stories that illustrate some of the career possibilities in sports management and marketing for current and aspiring students?
Yeah, how much time do you have? No, I'm just kidding. A few stories, and actually we're proud that our new School of Hospitality and Sports Business was featured in DePaul magazine, and some of the, maybe just focus on some of those folks, and maybe I'll toss in a new one. But one actually, which is a juxtaposition of a real growth area in sports, is women's basketball in the Chicago Sky, and a really terrific success story is their VP of Partnerships, Alex Teodosi, who started there as an unpaid internship after his junior year at DePaul. After a connection we made here, got hired full time right after that, and has been with them through playing at All-State Arena and doing all kinds of things. And now seeing to where, he was on the championship parade a couple of years ago, and seeing actually ever just being in a game a couple of weeks ago, just seeing the depth of sponsors in the arena, and playing at Wintrust Arena is a great place for them. And just seeing how he was able to grow and do that, and actually he's brought in, a couple other, DePaul students who've done very successful there. So that's a great story. Sean Montgomery, who's a customer service rep. I think I might get his title wrong, but a rep with the Chicago Blackhawks. Talk about leveraging opportunities. As a student, he worked game day premier stuff for the Cubs. He worked the fan zone for the White Sox. He worked fan experience for the Bears. All while he's going to college and all doing other stuff. So when it came down to apply for things, now he had the contacts, the experience across multiple stuff. He just got a big award for the biggest retention. He's in charge of a bank of season ticket holders, making sure they retain. He did that. So that was terrific in that context. Another student I was just with actually a grad student, Meg Babikian, who actually, her undergrad was in music composition and is a concert pianist, but really, through some courses, wanted to change and get in the sports industry. 2 years ago, she got in the Cubs. She took a huge pay cut to get in the Cubs inside sales program, which is a year-long program. Did really well. Got hired full-time as a account executive. Just as the season started, she got promoted to the manager of that group. So it's really cool seeing someone from a different industry, but getting the exposure here to do that. Patrick Scully, also in, I'll have to switch to a different area. Patrick Scully, who's with the Tennessee Titans. Again, he did internships with the Green Bay Packers, with Northern Illinois Athletics, with the Chicago Fire. As well as the Titans, have been promoted as senior director, and I think he was key to the new naming rights for the new stadium. So he stood out, switching around a little bit. We've got a couple of people in human resources, Clarabelle Diaz with the Cubs, who again did a whole bunch of things while she was in school, and now is in charge of hiring all 1,800 game day folks.
Looking to the future, sports marketing and management is rapidly evolving and growing, just like the business of sports itself. What kinds of trends in this field should students have their eyes on and be looking to capitalize on?
Yeah, well, sports betting certainly is one, and not just from the fact there are a lot of opportunities there and the different companies that are part of that, but also what that drives. Sports betting isn't just about the revenue for the betting. It's about the fan experience. It's about better TV ratings. It's about more merchandise. You're more engaged because you're betting, even if it's $5 or much more, you're going to be more engaged. So it's really helping grow the world of sports. In addition, the biggest trend by far, which the Olympic Games help pan that out, is women's sports. Right? For years, people talk about watch women's sports, pay attention. You should watch it because you should, right? Because if they're women's sports, whereas now, everybody knows this has become a kind of a landmark year and a half, which just keeps going on and on. Where the women's Final Four ratings were higher than men, which you would never grasp that. The Olympics focus not just even on traditionally women. You pay attention to gymnastics and even swimming, but the track and field was off the charts. So what does that mean, right? It means huge opportunities. The Red Stars sold out playing at Wrigley Field. Chicago Sky is filling Wintrust Arena. So what does that mean? I've talked about this with our students. What does that mean? More opportunities. It doesn't matter, male or female, right? It's all growing. So the industry is growing because sports, much like people capture the Olympics, the fact that it's live and it's engaging and people want to connect, that's not changing. As a matter of fact, it's growing. So everything kind of associated with that is a huge opportunity. And along with that, ticket sales has traditionally been and still continues to be one of the leading ways to get into sports, and that is changing. But analytics is, business analytics is a huge thing. And I'm not necessarily talking about the Moneyball side and player stuff, but on the business side, evaluating season ticket plans and media, and what's the right merchandising element, all of that. With the advent of cashless at the ballpark, they have data on everything, right? And there's no hard tickets anymore. They have data on who's coming, where they are, so how to do that and how to organize that. I know in the past 10 years, for one, because we work closely with them, Chicago Bulls hired their first analytics person. They have a 12-person staff just on business analytics there. So those are a couple areas that are opportunity. And also, I'll leave one out, is just digital media. Digital is growing in a wide range as people are capturing content, not just sitting in front of the TV and flicking the channels, but on multiple sources, multiple formats, quick hits and things. So how to do that and how to distill that is really another opportunity that's going to continue to grow.
Chicago is a legendary sports city. What kind of unique opportunities for studying sports management and marketing at DePaul does this location in Chicago present?
Yeah, I mean, that is, our sports business program has grown tremendously, and because of where we are, it's a big factor to that, right? I have great colleagues at other schools, but they don't have the advantage that we have, right? And then I can then capture this with, this will be the 11th year of our December term behind the scenes of Chicago Sports Organizations class, where we spend a week not having speakers come in, visiting Chicago sports organizations. And people ask me, well, how do you get around? Do you take a bus, or what do you get, rent a bus? No, we take the L, or you get wherever. So the furthest north we go is Wrigley Field. The furthest west we go is United Center. The furthest south is Guaranteed Rate Field. And we're able to capture the world of sports within that, right? And not just the professional sports teams. The companies that are here, they're doing that. Down the street in the old post office, that beautiful little space, Gatorade's headquarters are right here. We visit Gatorade. Wilson Sporting Goods, 200 East Randolph, right? Amazing space there, and seeing that. McDonald's, which is very involved in sports, McDonald's headquarters. In addition to terrific agencies like Paragon and Intersport and Revolution and Kemper Live. So your exposure to all those things right here, throughout, not just, we do that throughout the year, just like, with the Chicago NASCAR race, right? Where's that? We're travel to that. It's a block away, right? You walk outside your door and it's there. And our sports tourism class in the fall, we're going to do a project with the Chicago Marathon, also right outside our door. So, the opportunity, the confluence of that, and the benefit to that, long term also, is a lot of those organizations I just mentioned, now that we've been doing this for a while, all have DePaul students on their team. So the class I talked about where we visit these organizations, most of them have students there, former students, who are happy to give back and contribute. So that's a big part of what we do.